What are we watching when the Eagles close out the preseason against the New York Jets? Roster cuts coming on Tuesday. EJ, what do we need to know? What are we looking forward to in this final preseason game?
Yeah, there's not going to obviously be a lot of the major contributors to the team out there, but I do think there are jobs to be won and there are some questions to be answered in this game. And I feel like one of the spots I'm going to be watching very closely is the offensive line. It hasn't been the best couple weeks for those depth guys, guys like Brett Toth, Drew Kendall, Darian Kennard, Kendall Lamb. With the exception of Drew Kendall, I probably would say
Yeah.
some of those guys have had ups and downs. And I want to see those guys in this game and see if somebody can win maybe the sixth, the seventh, the eighth offensive line spots on game day. I feel like there are question marks there, and I feel like there are jobs, like I said, to be won with those interior line positions in particular.
One thing we have seen from Jeff Stoutland in the past with the offensive line in these last games is guys playing positions that we actually haven't really seen them play much of in the
Yeah.
summer. So I'm curious to see if we see some moving parts there. Now, Matt Pryor looked to us like he was not going to play in this game. He was sort of going through walkthroughs with the rest of the starters. So we probably won't see him, but will we see, Darian Kennard at left tackle or
Yeah.
something like that? Or Kendall Lamb has been taking some right tackle reps. Maybe he's involved there. I'm curious to see those things. And I did think that Drew Kendall playing guard last week, which we talked about, was a major deal. And I think they're trying to maybe get him ready to be the top backup on the interior week one.
Yeah, and I think that the questions I have maybe are more at those tackle spots. So somebody like Darian Kennard, somebody like Kendall Lamb, who Kendall Lamb had a good start to the summer, and he sort of has tailed off since then. So can those guys play well in the positions that we expect them to play? And then, yeah, to your point, are they playing in positions that we haven't seen them play as much at? And what can that tell us about what happens in a game scenario if Lane Johnson goes down or Jordan Mailata? We will see some of those contingency plans. I guess we'll get hints at those during the game, and I think that'll be an important thing to watch.
Okay, what is the next thing on your list of things to watch?
Obviously the guys who don't play are going to be indicative. It feels like there's always that one guy. Matt Pryor is kind of a good example of
Yeah.
it. That one guy that doesn't play that is, oh man, is he actually on the 53? We didn't really see that. But beyond that, I also think that there are some bubble players that will be out there that I'm intrigued to see. And Anaya Smith is at the top of the list for me.
Very good one.
I feel like he is somebody who is right on that bubble. Whether, if they keep six wide receivers, I could see him being on. If they need to borrow, maybe not borrow, but if they need to have the five, if they decide to keep five, I think Anias is probably the odd man out. Can he change that with a punt return or with a big game? He's obviously played well in the preseason games, which I think has helped his stock. But I feel like he fights an uphill battle because he doesn't have the versatility within the framework of the offense. And really, as a punt returner, he had the one good return against the Bengals, but in general, I wonder if they could find that value elsewhere on the roster. So he's going to have to prove it, I feel like, in this final preseason game.
So if it's not Anaya Smith, who do you think would be the punt returner?
I feel like Jahan Dotson is qualified for that job. He
Okay.
has experience, because I think the first question isn't who do you think is going to take a 70-yard return to the house.
Who's going to catch the ball? and give it to
Exactly.
the
It's
offense?
it's the classic like Greg Ward versus Jalen Rager thing from
Yeah.
many years ago, back when the Eagles wide receiver core was a lot less vaunted than it is right now. But you want somebody that will catch the ball. And I feel like Jahan Dotson, having college experience catching punts, and even though he wasn't really a part of the return group at the beginning of camp, it's something he's advocated for. It's something that he has done more of. I feel like he makes a lot of sense as a guy whose workload isn't going to be prohibitive for him to be doing that, and also somebody who you can trust to catch the ball back there.
Okay, after Anaya Smith, who was next on your list of bubble players?
I have Andre Sam. I feel like
Okay,
he has
that's a
so
good one.
much. He's got so much special teams value that I could see him sneaking onto the 53. But again, it's going to be a long shot. I think it is going to be. Nick Sirianni always talks about before the final preseason game. He shows a reel of players like Austin Eckler, maybe even Reed Blankenship this year. Reed Blankenship said he's got to check to see if he's on the reel this year.
Yeah.
But he'll show a reel of players who earn jobs with that third preseason game to kind of add some significance to it for the players who are going out there. Obviously, maybe as a player, you don't want to be in that third preseason game, but there are jobs up for grabs. And I feel like Andre Sam, if with a strong game, could he sneak onto the 53? I think there's a possibility. So I think, again, he's another player who I'll be keeping an eye on.
Can I give you my three players who I think could go out and earn a job?
Yeah,
I think
that.
generally we probably overstate the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Even Reed Blankenship, I think he was probably maybe
Yeah.
already on the roster that time. But I think there are three guys I have in my mind as if they go out and have a great game, they maybe make it too difficult to cut them.
Okay.
And they're all rookies. They're all undrafted rookies. I think Montrell Johnson is very interesting, the running back from Florida. And I think if he comes out and has a very impactful game, which is going to be hard given the offensive line,
Yeah.
I think he could take AJ Dillon's job as the number 3 running back on this team. It's a similar skill set. He's not quite as rocked up as AJ Dillon, but I think there's a little bit more niftiness in the hole than with AJ Dillon. And so Montrell Johnson is a guy who I could see going out and winning a job.
Yeah, and especially when you consider the fact that like AJ Dillon is not like it's not like you can't afford to cut him and bring him back, or even if they lost him, it's not like he's a potential difference maker on this roster. So I could see a world where it's like you move AJ Dillon, or you don't put AJ Dillon on the initial 53. You tell him he doesn't have to go through waivers, so you can always bring him back on the practice squad. If it is to protect a young player, I think it makes sense.
Next up, I am going with, you mentioned Andre Sam. I'm going with Maxon Hook, the undrafted rookie from Toledo.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that Maxon Hook could be on this 53-man roster. He had a very good first game of the preseason, I thought. Didn't play as much in preseason game number 2. I expect we will see a lot of him on Friday night, and he's a player that I think will be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6 foot, 202 pounds, and I wanted to look that up because he is like physically, he looks like an NFL player. And I feel like that is part of the battle when you are an undrafted guy coming into your first training camp. So, no, I'm intrigued by him. I mean, it's going to be a long shot. It's going to be something.
Yeah.
I feel like he is your like classic, like, does he have just a massive game to kind of change their minds? Because he's not somebody who I would really consider in the running for that job right now. But you're right. I think you could change some minds.
And then the last one is another player we've talked about. That is Lance Dixon, the linebacker, also from Toledo by way of Penn State. And this is more, do we see him like really pop on special teams? And as we're thinking about who is going to be the last, 2 or 3 guys on the roster, special teams will matter. And like the cost control of it being a rookie kind of helps push them over the needle. Dixon has some height, weight, speed, skill to him.
Yeah, I had him on my 53-man roster midway through training camp. I think he has a chance to sneak on for the points you raise, especially when you think about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. maybe not having as much special teams value. You really are going to want that, that linebacker room to contribute heavily on special teams. And I feel like he is a good fit for that, last linebacker on the depth chart, special teams guru or ace. I feel like he could win a job. I think that is a good one for you.
Anything else from you for this game?
I am just excited for it to be over in a way where it's like I'm just excited to get into the real action here. So not to poo-poo it, I think there are going to be guys who are going to be able to win jobs, but we're talking about them winning jobs for the main event. We're almost there.
Do you have a favorite preseason finale memory?
1 year we were driving back from MetLife, and I just remember it was like such a ridiculous thunderstorm that the sky. This is going to make me sound crazy, but the sky literally turned green. Like there was like a green hue in all the clouds. So
go Birds.
I guess maybe that was a sign. It wasn't the best year for the Eagles that year.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was like a positive sign.
I remember my first preseason finale. I believe Jack Ike-Guanu had 2 interceptions or something like that. And I thought, oh, this guy definitely just made the team. Like what a performance. He had battled injuries throughout his early star-crossed career, talked to him in the locker room like, oh, he's like, he did it. How do you feel about that? And then they cut him like 8 a.m. the next morning. Like, poor guy.
Did he end up anywhere? Did
he ended up somewhere, and then not a long career after that. Too many injuries.
Yeah. Well,
shout out to Jack. That'll do it for the PHL by Eagles podcast. Catch us every weekday at 2 o'clock. We'll have your post-game coverage of the preseason finale. That's EJ Smith. I'm Bo Wolf.